we're back. I still got Yari's car on the dyno. Obviously I said to be continued, and this is what I meant. We were dynoing till pretty late that night, and I was just tired and needed to go home. Plus, there's other things that I have to do if I'm trying to sort out the gas mileage. Obviously, you know, we just did the fuel system, the regulator and the pump and all that stuff, and the 1000cc injectors. And now the vacuum in the vehicle will regulate fuel pressure. So the tune is pretty different. This is one of those crazy things. So with tuning, there's a lot of misconceptions. Misconception number one, making horsepower is the hardest part of my job. That would be incorrect. The hardest part of my job is making sure that your car drives correctly and hits like all of its targets, it's not over or under timed anywhere, that it's like safe and also easy and fun to drive. And sometimes throttle response or like weird drivability issues end up being what I spend the most amount of my time on. So right now the car is warming up, which is you know, something that the customer is going to do every single time they have to redrive this car again, as they go fire it up in their driveway and it warms up. So you can see I'm watching the warm-up like fuel enrichment. So as the car goes from like ambient temperature, which right now is about 80 degrees, up to like, you know, operating temperature closer to 200 degrees, there's a scale of temperature versus fuel, like a compensation factor, you know, like 1.0 being non-modified, and like you can add like a few percent, like 1.05 is like 5%, and so on. So by tweaking the fuel correction at different temperatures as the car warms up, you know, you get something close to, you know, the correct air-fuel ratio as the car gets the temperature. This is pretty good because if you have huge injectors like this car does, 1000 cc's, you can fire this up every single morning and it could be like super rich. And like over a certain amount of drive cycles, you just go through way more spark plugs by fouling them out and stuff than you'd ever need to. So I just try to reduce customer headache in the future by fixing some of these things whenever I can. I'm letting it warm up and just kind of watching the stability of the air-fuel ratio. It's been really close to like exactly where I want it the whole way up, so I haven't had to really touch anything, which is kind of rare, but it happens sometimes. We made a few pulls yesterday just to make sure it was like roughly in the correct timing air-fuel ratios. I may play with VTEC, I may play with cam angle, and basically get the horsepower and torque sorted out. Keep in mind that this car is very stock. As far as horsepower modifications, all we've done is the fuel system that you saw. The exhaust under the car is like completely stock. There might be like a muffler on that, I can't remember, but like, I mean really like stock cat, stock downpipe, stock header, stock intake manifold. The actual intake arm is modified, but it's like, it's just still a filter. It's not anything crazy. It's pretty dang stock. So I'm not expecting to see huge horsepower gains. I think we're making around 170. I don't know, 5 or 10 horsepower, maybe 15 if we're lucky. Okay, I don't want to bore you with too many details, but these are some interesting facts and things that you just, I don't know, you might want to know. So thing number one is the reason why this is still accomplishable to get good gas mileage with these bigger 1000 cc's in the car is that the newer injectors, the bodies of them work better than the old ones did. So the newer style injectors just work better. Let me show you something on the actual tuning program. Hold on. Over here is your injector time in milliseconds, and if you notice that number is like 1.5 something, and if you look at our air-fuel ratio down here, it's still able to pretty much hit our target of 14.7 at almost all times. So the older injectors, they wouldn't run well when they were close to this 1.0 number, which is just, it's just such a slow, how do I explain this? Basically, the milliseconds is the amount of time that the ECU is opening and closing the injector. So it's sending an electrical pulse for 1.58 milliseconds to open and close the injector. The old injectors, they didn't like move fast enough to be able to open and close in that 1.5 seconds, so they would just misfire. They would like start to open but not really open and give any fuel, and you'd have no fuel. So you'd have to increase the fuel duty until this number got up to like 3 or 4 or like some ridiculously high number, and your air fuel ratio instead of like 14.6 would then be like 12.5, just to make sure the car would idle without a misfire. So the cool thing about the new injectors is that they will run really close to 1 millisecond, and on this car, 1000 cc's, we can still accomplish like our target lambda or target air fuel ratio pretty much everywhere we drive. So pretty freaking cool. I hope you guys like this content. It seems kind of boring, like classroom style to me. I really just like making horsepower and having fun, but the more of this stuff you guys can understand, the better your cars are going to be. And I feel like my whole job on this YouTube channel is to make these cars fun and like get you past the hurdles that make them frustrating. If you guys have less frustration, I feel like you're more likely to stick with your car and your build, and the whole community is bettered by people building these cars. Alright, Yari's car is pretty much done, and we're kind of dancing around like the same number. I think just the fact that it's full stock exhaust just doesn't let it breathe any better than it pretty much already was. So 168 point something to a peak of 174 on a cold pull. It's a few horsepower, it's pretty marginal, but the car is much smoother and the fuel is where it's supposed to be, and he should get better gas mileage. Well, I don't know about better in stock, but pretty dang close. Yeah, maybe better in stock. We'll have to see. That'll be determined by the gas mileage test. So,
for the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you. For the record, lab on me going all the way. For the record, ain't trying to link, no time to waste. For the record, for the record.
Know what you're thinking? This car looks a lot like Yari's car. It's very similar. Same color, almost the same year, and it's turbocharged. But it's just in here for like basic repair. But I thought I'd show you guys really quick, because if you've never seen what happens when a turbo like goes bad or kind of blows up, this one's super bad and super blown up. Check this out really quick. Let me see if I can get some light on it. Look how crazy that is. You can see that the wheel's all chopped up. Like, it's hard to tell. Like, can you see how the blades don't fit up to the housing? And there's like all kinds of wobbly wiggly room, and you can kind of see how the one edge over here is rolled over from rubbing along the housing like a whole bunch of times. So yeah, this thing was like blowing a bunch of oil out the compressor and burning a bunch of it out the back housing as well, and it didn't even spin. You can kind of see, didn't even spin at all when it came off the car, so no wonder the car was running so bad. So anyway, we're gonna switch this guy out with a fresh one, but first I gotta weld up this little 90. Gotta cut him off and weld it back onto this turbo, because they had modified this to fit the boost piping, and it works really well. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep this, just weld it onto here.
For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you. For the record, lab on me going all the way. For the record, ain't trying to link, no time to waste. For the record, for the record, yeah.
Okay, now that I got that part cut off the old one, I gotta cut up the brand new turbo. It seems crazy, right? But I gotta cut this end off because it's just like a hair too long.
Been a little too nice to y'all. Now I gotta up price on y'all. Snake eyes on dice for y'all. Shoulders on ice for y'all.
That sucker's a little shorter now. Aluminum is kind of like a coarse, like a brittle material. So anytime I weld it, you see how like the surface is completely flat? I like to put like a bevel on it so there's plenty of room to like fill the material all the way in, like the width or distance of this actual welded piece. That way it's strong and fused all the way into the center. Otherwise you end up running a bead just around the top and it doesn't, you know, penetrate all the way into the inside. But if you want to be really strong, you gotta cut a little bevel on it and then you can just weld it up.
I have to pivot, shooting hit bazookas for the facts. I need racks, paper tax, fucking tax. That's a joke, tell them laugh. Uncle Sam, fuck out the bag. Brody plot, we'll get a whack. Contract, give me the max. I got laugh on my back. You ain't that, then it's raps. Whoa. For the record, I'm done tryna make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't tryna grow, then it's done for you.
Hey, this is Marco. Marco Z is a 2013. He's owned it since
16.
Since 2016, so almost when it was new.
Yeah.
It only has how many miles?
Right now, 41,000.
41,000 miles, and I officially think that he's done more modifications than I've ever seen to a Z ever in history. He literally has carbon fiber everywhere. He has those huge fenders on the back. How wide is that back wheel?
12 inches.
Freaking 12-inch wide rear wheel.
305s in the rear.
It's freaking ridiculous. He's got the louvers on the window, the wing. I mean, there's so many things I can't even mention at all. But essentially, I tuned this car when he had only had it for a little while, a couple years ago, and it made, I can't remember exactly, but we're gonna do another dyno test today, and he's changed a few things. We're gonna go ahead and kind of retune for that. And yeah, just thought I'd show you this because it's kind of like the craziest Z that we've ever had in here. Got it kind of dialed in for now, and we're probably gonna do a little bit more. We're having a little issue keeping the car cool, and we're gonna do some data logging and drive around type stuff while I'm dark out here, and then we're gonna come back and make all the horsepower. It's doing pretty good already, but we're gonna make a little bit more. Torque steer?
Torque steer, yeah.
Torque steer. Look at this beautiful one down there, though. I do like that.
It's a 05, 06 body.
Yeah.
Teardrop eyes.
It's nice. Not as nice of an ECU. You gotta do flash bro, which means you have to like wait for it to like loading. It's not as fun to tune. Okay, anyway, we're driving this, the gray RSX with the turbo that you saw me weld in the turbo cover for the other day. We got everything sorted out, and we just cleaned out a bunch of oil from the intercooler piping, and now we're just driving around, and I always like to check the last few things, make sure everything is, you know, efficient, good gas mileage, drivable, make sure it's not dying at lights or shutting off or doing anything weird, which I'm sure it won't, but I'm just double checking. So, the good thing about this car is it has super nice AC, and the weird thing is, the gauge only says it has 32,000 miles. Yari's making it very hard for me to vlog while he's busy experiencing the boost. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this might be the last clip of the day because I am slammed. I have a 12 o'clock appointment for dyno tuning a Miata on Mega Squirt, which is kind of interesting. And then I have a G35 coming after that, 330. And I have to fix an oil catch can issue on a B18. Boosted B18. The one that went to the track. You remember the guy that went to the track and he broke his axle or transmission? Yeah, that one's back and he's been filling the catch can with oil. This is a really common problem that people have when they go boost. I think I know what's wrong with his car, but I'll show you guys in the next video. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and we're just gonna keep going and boosting down the road, so. See you guys.